earlier, it would be good to have a piece of paper and a pencil so that you can actually participate. The best way to learn what we're going to be learning today in the webinar is to participate. So when I give you things to sing or things to write down, do your best to sing along. I'm not able to see you or hear you, which is okay, but interacting is the best way to make sure that you understand the material. Also, if you need to, make sure to write inside the chat any questions, and I will, again, answer them most likely orally, not typing, because, again, talking and typing just never works out. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully, if anybody falls behind or anybody needs catching up, we'll be able to catch them up quickly. My name is Will. I am a teacher here with Take Lessons. I do voice, piano, flute. I also teach music theory and ear training, which is what you're here for today. So people get a little nervous when they hear ear training. It sounds like something that's this big mystery that needs to be unveiled, but it really is something quite simple. What we're trying to do is we're trying to take the melodies that we're hearing and write them down on paper so that we can replicate them. Another use for ear training is, learning. If you hear a song that you like on the radio, you want to be able to identify what's going on in that song in order to, again, replicate it and perform it to the best of your ability. All right, so let's begin. And hello, if you're coming in, we are getting started. All right, so first thing I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about rhythms. So when it comes to ear training, one of the easiest things to do when you first hear something that you can't recognize is figure out what the rhythm is. The reason being, if you can figure out the rhythm of the song or the timing of the song, you already have half the battle. So just a quick review of the different kinds of rhythms. And again, thank you for coming in. I see that people are still coming in. So we're going to go ahead and start. Here's my little cheat sheet. We're going to start right here with the quarter note. So if you hear a quarter note, we're going to put one slash. Now, again, if you don't have a music theory knowledge, a quarter note is something that, a quarter note is one beat. One beat. We're dealing with 4/4 time here, so you're going to hear 4 beats in a measure. A quarter note, which is what this is, will get a beat. Okay. Under here, again, this is just a quick review before we do anything. These are eighth notes. So eighth notes are worth half of a beat. That means you're going to need 2 of those eighth notes to make up one quarter note. In our case, you're going to hear 8 eighth notes to fill the measure. So we would mark that like this. We put the little slash with a line over it so that they're grouped in 2s. I promise you it'll make sense. It will. And again, thank you for just coming in. The next thing is a little bit harder to do, so I'm going to bring this over here. This is the half note. A half note is worth 2 beats. Now, we don't really have a good way to put a half note down while we're just trying to hear for rhythm. So what I have a lot of my colleagues and I do is we'll put a slash and then a dot, or a slash and then like a hash mark to notate that it's lasting for more than 1 beat. And then we're going to do the same thing for the whole note. Whole notes, see right there. Whole notes are worth 4 beats. Usually when you see them in a measure, they're that big circle. You don't want to write a big circle because right now we're listening for rhythm, not for pitch. So what we'll do is we'll put that slash mark with 1, 2, 3, 3 hash marks afterwards, notating that it lasts for all 4 beats. All right, so really, really simple. So what does that mean? Well, basically what I have here is a drum. I have a drum. Fantastic. We're going to work on trying to get some of those rhythms written down so that we kind of get used to figuring out what the rhythms are before we try to add any pitches. We'll do pitches very shortly. So here's a measure. So we're looking at this quarter note measure. So we have those 4 quarter notes. So it sounds something like this. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Easy. Now we're going to go ahead and look at those eighth notes. So we have, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. We hear that they're moving very quickly. They're double the beat of the actual quarter notes. For our purposes today, while we're trying to learn about rhythm, when we hear the half note, we'll hear. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, there's a double reason why I'm actually dampening the drum. I know someone's going to say, why are you holding the stick down? It sounds like you're stopping the sound. Well, in a way, yes, I'm trying to make it so that you can definitely hear it over the computer. I don't want there to be any sound issues or any sound blips. Okay, and the last one again, this whole note, These very similar. 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll just count out 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so let's go ahead and see if we can figure out some of the examples I have. So I'm going to play a rhythm for you. On your piece of paper, I want you to mark what you think you hear. If you hear a quarter note, 1 slash. If you hear the eighth note, you have the 2 slash with the bar, and so forth. All right, here we go. So here's the first rhythm for example number 1. Take a quick listen. So we have. All right, I'm going to give it to you 2 more times. Let's see if we can get it. All right, I think, do we all have it? I hope we do. We'll try once more. Okay, so on your paper, if you were doing this and you were following what we were talking about, you should have, so I wrote this as example number 1, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 quarter notes. That was the beginning. Then the next measure of the first example, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and we have all of those eighth notes. All right, let's do one more example of just rhythm, and then we'll jump right into melodies, because again, we want to make sure we're moving along. Is there, if there's any questions, again, make sure to put them in the chat. All right, so example number 2, we're going for rhythm. Make sure you have the paper and the pencil ready to make sure you have, you know, what we're working on. So here's example number 2. All right, try number 2. And last time. All right, so if you were following what we were talking about to identify the rhythm, you should have in the first measure of example number 2, 1 dash 2 dash 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I did the whole example. I apologize. But the whole example is 1 dash 2 dash 1, 2, 3, 4, which means we have those half notes, and we also have those eighth note. That sound is, but we're moving on. So now we're going to start working on melodies. Melodies are, or rhythms and pitches are what we need to actually figure out what the song sounds like. So the song, we're going to use the key of C. Now, I hope you guys have learned different keys. The key of C is, the key of C is a really simple key. It's one that most songs start in. Usually when you take music theory classes, it's the first thing you learn. Oh, I apologize, I got real close. So C is right here, this note. C. And what we're going to do is we're going to use solfege. Now, I hope you guys have heard of solfege before. If you haven't, solfege is the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It's really good to use solfege while you're trying to do ear training, because you can use what we just did with all those rhythms and the solfege to determine what you're actually listening to when you want to write it down. So again, so here we go. We have our cheat sheet with the solfege. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Now, how does that help us with ear training? Well, if you take a look on the top, we have the actual note names. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, C, D, A, G, F, E, D, C. So we're going to use that solfege to go ahead and figure out what the pitches are. The pitches plus the rhythms is how we figure out what the song sounds like and how we actually write down the melody and learn different melodies. All right, so example number 1, I'm going to keep it nice and simple. What you're going to do is we're going to hear it 3 times. I recommend first writing the rhythm you think you hear down. Oops, sorry. Write the rhythm you think you hear down. And then on the second time listening, write the solfege syllable down. Using the solfege and the rhythm, you should be able to figure out what the melody is. All right, so here we go. We're using the piano and my voice. So in the first example, we're going to sing do, so, mi, do. All right, so write the rhythm down. Right, here we're going. We're going to do example number 2. Let's see if we can get the solfege in. Do, mi, so, mi, do. All right, so you should have the rhythm. You should have the solfege. In case you missed it, here's the last time through this example. Do, mi, so, mi, do. All right, so what you should have on your paper, and I'm going to write it down real quick, because again, I'm doing it with you just to make sure that we understand. So, mi, so, mi, and do. Okay, so you should have on your paper, we should have a slash with a dash, because we have 2 quarter notes and a half note at the beginning. And then we had the solfege, do, mi, so. The next measure was exactly the same with the rhythm. Quarter, quarter, half note with the so, mi, and do. All right, so how do we use this and this together? Well, we know that do is C. So what you're going to do is you're going to bring this down and draw a C right over where do is. Same thing with mi. You know that is E because we have our cheat sheet. And we're going to do the same thing with so, only we know that a half note has the opening. Right, so do, mi, so. You can do the same thing with the other bar as well. So that's one method that is very widely used to write down a melody while you're hearing it for ear training. Let's do one more example to make sure that we understand everything that we're doing. All right, this one, let's try it. I'll give you 3 times through. Remember, I recommend the first time through trying to get the rhythm, the second time through trying to get that pitch, and the third time through kind of putting it together in case you missed anything. Here we go. So here's our number 2 example. Do, re, mi, fa, mi, re, do. All right, let's do it again. Do, re, mi, fa, mi, re, do. And the last time, again, I can't hear you, so I don't know if you're getting it. If for any reason you need me to do it an extra time, please say something. You can chat it, put it in the chat screen. Do, re, mi, fa, mi, re, do. All right, so again, what we should have is we should have 4 quarter notes. 2, 3, 4. So 4 slashes, because we know that they're all quarter notes. We sang do, re, mi, fa, and fa, mi, re, do. So we also wrote in the solfege, do, re, mi, fa, and fa, mi, re, do. Now again, because we're in the key of C and we were talking about that, we can use this information with the actual scale that we're working on to figure out what the notes are. Again, we know that do is C. So for our do's, we'll put our lovely C in. Re is going to be D, which is the bottom, the space right below the bottom line. Mi is that E on the bottom line, and fa is the F. So again, yes, you do need a little bit of music theory knowledge to successfully do ear training. You have to actually know what the scale is that you're working in. But if you use the solfege and you use those rhythms together, what you do is you have a winning combination that's going to go ahead and help you get every melody you've ever wanted. You can do this with songs you hear on the radio. You can listen to what they're singing, try to figure out where does that sit inside the scale? What's that solfege? What's that rhythm? And you can write it down or learn it faster. Now, excuse me. Now, one of the things that was mentioned in the description of the course is that I want you to be able to, and we all want you to be able to, pick out melodies from various instruments. So today we are going to learn to listen to some instruments, excuse me, and write down the melodies. It's going to be very similar to what we just did. Instead of me singing and playing a piano at you, however, we're going to go off of an instrument. So this is a flute. I'm sure you know what a flute is. You've probably seen one before. The reason why flute is actually a really good instrument to use when you're starting to learn how to figure out instrumentation and how to figure out what the melody is from an instrument is because flute is what's called a C instrument, which means that you don't have to do anything crazy with the key. Whatever sound you hear, that is correct. That's going to be the key you write down. That's not the case with all instruments. If you do want to learn more about that, again, you can always sign up for lessons with me. We can do more ear training. There's different kinds of ways to do that. But for our intents and purposes, because we are just trying to get going with the ear training, we're going to use a C instrument. All right, so what I'm going to do is I want you to write this down. So we're going to write flute, C5. Now, the reason why we're saying C5, in case you've never heard of such a thing, this is something that's used in a lot of music theory. They teach you where the placement of the notes are according to where the piano is. So C5 is actually the C that's above the bottom of the staff. So it's right here. It is. So it's on the 1, 2, 3, third line. C in this case is also going to be do, because we can still use our solfege to figure this out. And we're going to start on the note C. Okay. Now, for this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to play the examples 3 times, just like before. You could write down the actual melodies. You can write down the solfege. You could even write the letter name down, and we can fill in the notes afterwards. Again, I want you to learn how to use ear training. I don't necessarily expect you to have it all figured out right now. All right, so I told you the first note is C, which is do. Let's see if we can figure this out. So here's our first melody. All right. Shall we go again? And one more time. All right, so the first thing we should have heard is that we have 2 quarter notes, a half note, and 4 quarter notes. I'm sorry, 2 quarter notes and a half note. I'm doing it with you. All right, so we heard, as I said, the 2 quarter notes and a half note, 2 quarter notes and a half note. Now, what was the solfege? Was anybody able to figure that out? It was a little bit more difficult because I wasn't singing it to you this time. So you had to really think, what am I listening to? What does that sound like? This is a good place where you can start using your music knowledge. If you, again, we're taking music theory, you should have already learned about intervals. Intervals are the different spaces in between notes. So we have do, mi, fa, mi, re, do, right? Do, mi, fa, mi, re, do. That's what I played. Good. So what are the notes then? So we figured out the rhythm. We figured out the solfege. What's the notes for the melody I just played if you wanted to play it on your own? Well, we have C, we have E, F, and then we have E, D, C. All right, and then if you want to, you could fill it in just like we did before. So we have the C in there already. Now we have the D, the E, and the, sorry, it should be the F. It's hard to do with a marker. And then E, D, and obviously C again. Now, I told you before, use a pencil and paper, that way you can erase. Obviously, you see I have a marker on normal size paper, which makes it very hard to write in those 5 lines. So yours is hopefully looking a lot clearer than mine. All right, so we played with the flute. So that was a flute, a C instrument. This time around, I'm gonna change the instruments up. Now I have next to me a piano. You can't see the piano because I actually have no way of holding it up and playing it at the same time. But there is a piano here, see? Yep, right here. Right? So this time around, I'm going to go ahead and play a melody on the piano. Now again, these are all fairly simple melodies because I really want you guys to get the idea of what we're doing. This particular time, on your piece of paper, you will write piano C4. C4 is a really famous note. It's actually one of those notes that I always tell people, as odd as it is, you really want to get used to hearing C4. C4 is called middle C. Middle C happens to exist in between both the bass clef and treble clef. Right now, we're just dealing with the treble clef because, again, we are trying to learn the basics. We are not necessarily learning full chords or anything just yet. Middle C, as I said, is located underneath. So we have that circle with a line through it. We're going to write C. That's also, again, do, because we're in the key of C, which is what we've been doing with the solfege. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Right? So we're going to go ahead and write that out. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to play it 3 times through. I want you to hear, try to figure out the rhythm, try to figure out the solfege, and then try to figure out the actual note letter. If you want, you can also draw the note in when you are ready. I'm going to put this down, and here we go. Let me make sure this is ready to go. All right, so here's our first one. All right, shall I do it again? Give you a minute. And last time through. Okay, so again, yes, I am picking really simple melodies. And again, thank you for staying and learning with me. So what we have here, we heard that I actually played 2 eighth notes right away. So we have those eighth notes right there with the 2 slashes connected with the bar. And then we have 1, 2, 3 quarter notes in each of those measures. So how did that rhythm go for you? I hope it went well. I hope it did. All right, then we decided at the second time through, we wanted to figure out what that solfege was. So we have do, re, mi, fa, sol, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Good, good. I hope you had that down. And then again, we're using the solfege to figure out the notes because again, we're trying to assume that we're starting from the basics of understanding your training. So that would be C, D, E, F, G, G, F, E, D, C. And if you want to, or you had time to, you would write, I'll just write the 1 because again, it's probably hard to see anyways, so bear with. Okay, so we wrote in the notes so that we actually had it written on the staff. So one of the things, before we do the next one, that I really want to emphasize is it's extremely hard to learn ear training if we don't have an okay foundation in music theory. You do have to actually know, where the notes are on the staff. Again, we're only using treble clef at the moment, but most ear training classes will also include bass clef, and in some cases they'll include some special clefs like alto or tenor clef. If you want to learn more about alto or tenor clef, again, feel free to sign up with lessons with me, or just take a look it up for yourself and see what I'm talking about. There's all kinds of information out there. I really want you all to learn. Learning is my goal here. I want you to learn. Okay. Hopefully that was enough time for you to write everything down. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is sing for you. Yes, last thing I'm going to do is sing. I'm going to sing a melody for you. This time, I am not going to actually sing the solfege for you the first time through. The reason being is I sang it for you last time, and I want you to figure it out. If I sing the actual melody, it's kind of like giving you a cheat. Yeah. Now, so I wrote voice and I wrote E4, which looks like this. Now, I did that because a lot of the times your melody will not start on do, believe it or not. It's very common for it to start on mi or so. In this case, I'm picking mi, E. So I want to give you that in your ear. Most people don't have what's called perfect pitch. I can't say E4 and you'll automatically know what it is. We have relative pitch. Relative pitch is something that you can actually build on. So when you hear da, e, mi, you should be able to figure out where to go. Mi, re, do, mi, re, do, mi. Does that make sense? So that's why again, I'm giving you that pitch because I want to get it in your ear. Mi. All right? So we're going to sing, here we go. Mi, La, 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 la. Ooh. So one more time. La, 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 la. And again. La, 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 la. Did we get it? Let's try it one more time. La, 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 la. Okay, so I picked a fairly easy melody, but again, it's harder because I'm singing it. I didn't give you the solfege. So we wrote down the rhythm first. So we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 quarter notes right at the beginning. And that last note was held for a while, right? So we had a line with 3 dashes because that was our whole note. So if you have 4 quarter notes and a whole note, you got it correct. Good. Now I sang la, 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 la. Mi, fa, mi, mi, mi. One of the hardest things to figure out when you're doing ear training is if a singer is repeating a note. Now, the reason why this becomes a difficult thing is because a lot of the times when you hear a vocalist in particular, it's very different from an instrumentalist. A vocalist repeating a note, me, 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 depending on what's going in the background, you automatically start to hear as if the note is raising. It's not. It was, in this case, it wasn't. In this case, we had it nice and even. The reason why that happens is because basically your ear does take cues from background music too, so they assume that the melody changed. Now, if you wanted to actually write this in, this one's actually pretty easy to write in because we only use 2 notes technically. So we have, excuse me, we have the E, we have the F, we have the E and the E, and then we have the long note E. All right. I hope that we all understood that so far. So again, we did a little bit of instrumental examples. We used the flute, we used the piano, we used my voice, we've used the rhythm, so we figured out that rhythm. We figured out what that solfege was. We used the solfege to figure out what the note is, and then we took all of that information and wrote it down. Now, I'm going to give you something a little bit more complicated in our last few minutes. So, when you listen to music, one of the things that a lot of people want to do is they want to be able to play and sing. So if you're somebody who plays an actual chorded instrument like a guitar or a piano, you might want to figure out, what is this chord? So today we're going to briefly talk about the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5/7 chord, and then I think we'll probably reach our time limit for today, which is okay. So these are the common chords. Now the 1, 4, and 5 chord is actually the chords that are used to write so many songs. In fact, there's even things on YouTube where they talk about how funny it is that you can sing so many songs to these 3 chords because everybody uses them. So how do we figure out what the 1 chord is? Well, right here, I'm going to bring this rather close. We have the 1 chord in the key of C. We have a C, an E, and a G. That's also Do, Mi, So. Now, when you hear this in the song, it's most likely not going to be broken. A lot of times chords are played all at once. But if you think in your head, Do, Mi, So, Do, Mi, So. Oh, that's the C chord. You can use Do, Mi, So to figure out if you're playing the 1 chord. Obviously, depending on the key of the song, it'll change which key the chord is, but that is the 1 chord. Now, the next chord that's extremely common is the 4 chord. Take a look. That C is still down there at the bottom. So how does it change? Well, we lifted the 2nd note in the chord and the 3rd note in the chord by 1 step. So we have the F and the A. So it sounds like this. Now that obviously changes the solfege, right? So we have Do, Fa, La, Do, Fa, La, Do, Fa, La. See, you can sing it to figure out what it is. So real quick before we learn the 5 chord, let's play 4 or 5. Here we go. So here's our first chord. 4 or 5, what is it? Do, mi, so. No, that's not right. That doesn't sound right. Do, fa, la, do, fa, la. Oh, it's the 4 chord using those solfege syllables. All right, here's the next one. Oops, sorry. What's that one? 1 or 4? Well, again, let's check out our solfege. Is it do, mi, so, do, mi, so? Exactly. Those notes sound like they fit. There's no grinding or dissonance. That's what that tension is called. So we know that that's the 1 chord. Now here comes the trickiest chord of the bunch. This one's called the 5-7 chord. The reason why it's called the 5-7 chord as opposed to just the 5 chord is when you hear it in songs, they actually alter the bottom note. They bring it down 1 step. That 1 step to that B. Then we have an F and a G. It has dissonance. It has a grinding sound. It sounds like this. Very grinding, very strange sounding. Now, the solfege for that would be Ti, Fa, So, Ti, Fa, So. Now, to a lot of people, when they first start doing ear training, this sounds like noise. It doesn't actually sound like notes. It's hard to pull them apart because, again, we have dissonance. We have 2 notes right next to each other. The vibrations of the notes are banging into each other, which is what makes that grinding sound, thus dissonance. So there you go, dissonance. Let's try singing that one more time. So that's Ti, Fa, So, Ti, Fa, So. Very good. All right. So for our last activity for this class, and thank you all for being so very attentive. I do hope that everything is making sense. And again, if you do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or in the questions. All right. Let's try to figure out if we're playing the 1, if we're playing the 4, or the 5. So let's mix them up and see. So here's our first chord. What is it? Is it do, mi, so, do, mi, so? It is. It is that 1 chord. All right. What's this one? Ti, fa, so, ti, fa, so. That's that 5-7 chord with that dissonance, that grinding sound. Good. And our last chord. Do, fa, la. Our 4 chord, right? Do, fa, la. All right, there you go. So you have learned the basic chords. You should be able to identify the 1, the 4, and the 5 chord while you're trying to hear a song and you're trying to replicate it or write it down. We've also, again, we've used rhythm to figure out what the rhythm of the song is. We use slashes and dashes. We use solfege to figure out what those pitches were. And by taking the rhythm plus the solfege, we were able to put the notes on the paper. I hope that this has been very helpful for you and has started your journey on ear training. At this time, I wanted to ask if there is any questions or anything that wasn't quite clear that you wanted me to go over again. So let's give you a minute. Any questions? Any questions at all? Okay, well then. Again, thank you so much for coming to my class today. If you're interested in learning more about ear training and doing some more in-depth learning, again, learning to hear from different instruments, learning about the bass clef, learning other things, feel free to go ahead and sign up with lessons with me, and I'll be happy to help you use all of your music theory knowledge and your ear to help you become the best musician you possibly can. All right. Well, again, thank you so much. And I believe we are all set for today. So again, thank you for coming.